Even though Preeti just came up, I think I'll give the mic to Preeti. So, she being my senior, I think I'll hand over. Okay, take care. All right, will do. So then, since Preeti is Preeti, not because she's senior, right? So, I didn't mean it that way. I know what you heard. She is pretty though, but, really, like, come on. I'm going to mess
I love
it
it.
up.
This is why I come to poetry festival, to literary festivals, because there's always something happening which is completely left off center and completely unexpected. I remember the book, and I think we come to poetry, to literary festivals because of you. When you write a book or you write a poem, you send it out into the world and it vanishes into a void. You don't know who's read you. You don't know who's thinking about you. You don't know anything more about that book and its fate. And then you come to a literary festival and someone will come up to you and say, I read your book, I enjoyed it. Or in one wonderful case, a young girl came up to me and she said, she held up a book I had done. And she said, is this your book? So I said, yes. She said, I found it very boring. So I said, I'm so sorry. Why did you buy it? She said, I don't buy my books. My parents buy them. They bought it for me. So I was duly corrected. And then the second little girl, when I was signing copies of A Bear for Felicia, picked it up, looked at it, and she said, do you have this in pink? Because I didn't have it in pink, but it made me think, why don't we have book covers in choices? Pink cover, blue cover, yellow cover. I suggested it to my editor who said, you bring the funds.
Again, it's back to me. No, I have stuff. Yeah, I got stuff. No, it's just, I think it was the Guardian article that started it all off, which was questioning whether Indians read for pleasure and what good are the literary festivals and are they melas, because apart from the fact of having some books and writers, most of it is supposed to be like a carnival where you have other stalls, you have selfie points, and you have other things that make the festival much more interesting and increases footfall. So it just leads me to think that why do we have more than 100 lit fests? Who comes to these? Who funds these? As somebody who's been in publishing for many, many years, 25, 30, whatever, yeah, it's a place that you do look for, and you think that you're selling books and you're projecting the authors and you're getting visibility and all of that, but how much of it really translates into sales of books? I know that the JLF, William Dalrymple, famously has, I think, rebutted that Guardian piece and said that this is all rubbish and it's irritating to even read or even have somebody, write this like a Western viewpoint about does India read and what good are festivals, because he talked about JLF, the Jaipur Lit Fest, which is, of course, the biggest and most commercially successful festival there is probably in the world, and which is, of course, also traveling everywhere and also has, I think, taken over many places. And I feel really bad about that because I think that does away with the preciousness of smaller festivals and places which are trying to project local writers, local issues. And I also say that as somebody who comes from Punjab, I live in Amritsar part of the time. I have a home there which I've turned into a literary space. We do festivals, but we also do conversations around books and ideas and issues that he talked about the war in Iran. We had a session on Gaza, on the genocide in Gaza, which an IFS officer came and talked about just last month. And it was strange because we had the Tribune there, we had various Hindi newspapers and Punjabi newspapers that came to attend the session. Not one of them carried a piece on the session that we had done, so there is censorships. But all the same, I like to think that it's a space that is free, a space that is that allows all kinds of issues to be put on the table and to be able to discuss and talk about that. But I think those are the kinds of things you can only do in a smaller setup. We are not funded. We get no money from the government or from anybody else, so we don't toe the line. We are not told who to call, who not to call, what to talk about, and what not to talk about. And I think because also that this is something that came out in the last session as well, and when I think Bhai, you were speaking, that there has to be that, I mean, I think it is a reader's or a writer's or a poet's responsibility to be able to speak truth to power kind of thing. You need to say all those things, but a lot of other people don't have the words to say them. And it is the responsibility of lit fests to be able to bring those ideas on the platform. And I don't know if this is correct to say or not, but I think a lot of the larger lit fests actually fail in doing that, for whichever reason.
Can I add something? We have to, people like us who write and are invited by mad people like Mark, who don't get, put all that effort behind a lit fest like this, and your sister Sangi, that kind of passion, that kind of madness, you may not get today. You can see how many people are here, but then there is some kind of other satisfaction, because I think literature festival like this does not necessarily have to be like a sporting, event where you have thousands of people. And I said this morning that even if I have an audience of one, which I can communicate, I think is sufficient. And thanks to you, people like you, and the bonus is I get to meet people like, Preeti and Arundhati and Jerry and all of us who come here to attend events like this. And such a wonderful, the after hours are as important, and you made the after hours very nice. The unwinding hours, as they call it.
Bhai has actually done a festival for 15 years now. I wonder if you'd like to talk about that.
Most of you now you know now that I am from Goa, and most of you probably know Goa because of the beaches and the churches and the temples and rivers, and now of late probably you are aware of the casinos that are run in Goa. But leave aside from that, for the last 14 years, we are entering in the 15th year now, we have been running this literature festival. We were blessed when we started in 2010, our first edition. We were blessed by none other than the literary icon of India, Professor U.R. Anantamurthy. And I was very happy that he not only attended the inaugural session, but he stayed through the function and he blessed us. And I'm very happy to see the 14th edition just concluded a fortnight back. When we started, it was in a very humble way, very modest start. But gradually we made up for the audience, I would say. Earlier, when we started, I think we had 3 different venues, and each venue was having about the audience of 20, 25, 30, 40. But then we approached the universities. Then we approached the literary organizations and other public, and they gathered. And then today, I'm very proud to say, Jerry was witness to it. We had full houses in Goa for 2 full days. Earlier, first day we dedicate for inauguration, and the next 2 days for deliberations. And 2 full houses, 2 days full houses of different kinds of discussions on books. Number of book launches happening. In fact, I was feeling, fed up of book launches. Yeah, too many book launches. Every now and then, every 15 minutes, somebody would come. Of course, we don't entertain last minute, but then at least I think during the 2 days, During the 2 days, we launch at least about 20 books. But then discussions were more important. Well, after 14 editions, we are going into the 15th one, and we are planning in a big way. In the sense, from 50 it will go to 60 crowd. But then what is important is the quality of crowd. The audience, even the students who attend, they are very responsive, very attentive, and that is what gives us satisfaction the most. So over the years, I've been listening. Just recently, when they were in poetry session, someone said poetry is dead, is a rumor. Yes, we often listen to such rumors. Probably they are spread deliberately. The poetry is dead. Someone said the other day, the novel is dead now. Somebody said now the non-fiction has come up, the fiction is dead. These are the rumors. They have their own life. They will live on. And now I hear many people saying, Litfests are getting dead. The days are over. Over to Jerry.
Long ago, before there were literary festivals, Arundhati Subramaniam curated a very important cultural event or series of events called Chauraha, which opened up the very elitist space of the NCPA in Bombay, which, even for me, was obviously a space meant for the rich and the South Bombay elite. So I'd like you to talk about that idea of, curating and now being curated, that difference, Arundhati.
Thank you, Jerry, because it's not often that people remember. Sometimes I'm very aware. Time passes so quickly that there are times I don't remember Chauraha and its events, so it's nice to have someone periodically memorialize it. Thank you for that. I was just thinking when I heard both of you talk that there is sometimes a dichotomy between the curator's hat and the writer's hat. And you talked of the dichotomy between activist and writer on occasion. I actually wanted you to talk more about that. And I was asking myself, even as the two of you spoke now, what is the connection between a curator and a participant at a festival? So here's what I want to say at the start. I love the big festival for the fact that it enables those of us who write books, it enables us to put those books out there, to invite people to pick them up, look through those pages, and if they're so inclined to pick them up and buy them. So really the way I started looking at lit fests, the epidemic when it started, I started looking at it as a great possibility because poetry, which is the very unfashionable form that I practice, poetry is a portable form. Unlike others prose writers who endlessly sit around in panel discussions and can't quite share their work except talk about it, poetry is a form you can actually share live. And as you share it live, sometimes, if you're lucky, some unwary person in the last row might want to go and pick up one of your books. So it becomes a hopeful possibility. That's how I saw lit fests when I started out. And on some level, perhaps that's still how I see it. But I will say what I do miss, and this is certainly as the person who once organized Chauraha, which was a small, interactive, informal forum. What I do miss is the lit fest, or what we call the poetry fest of old, when a bunch of Northeastern poets, for instance, which is how I know Mona, and which is how I know Guru and Robin and Kim Pham and Mamang. When a bunch of people just sat around talking poetry, and there wasn't this kind of divide between the audience and the participant, but there was a kind of fluidity and an informality, and we were allowed to be shabby misanthropic writers. We didn't have to become self-conscious, mic-holding participants. So I sometimes miss that. And at the same time, I know that there is room and there is a role that the Big Fest plays, and I'm not dismissing that or discounting that. I actually have a poem in my book. I think Amitabh bought the last of the copies, so the book isn't available anymore, but it's called The Gallery of Upside Down Women. And I have a poem there called The Marketplace of Poets. And that's really about this particular kind of unease that I feel about the marketplace. There was a time when we had the stereotype of the 19th century poet, a bit tubercular and misanthropic up in the attic somewhere. And thank God poets aren't like that anymore. Thank God poets are being invited to festivals. Thank God we can share our work with you. But I do feel a certain ambivalence, even as I implicate myself. I feel a certain ambivalence about the marketplace and the way in which it has compelled many of us to raise our voices, to shake our fists, to make the right sounds, to utter the right slogans, to turn to demagoguery, or to implore you to pick up our books. It makes me sad sometimes that we've come to that. So I'm not saying this as an us-them thing. I implicate myself here. But I do miss a particular ethos where the divide between the writer and the audience wasn't as fixed as it sometimes seems to be today.
Marwata, I wanted to ask you, what makes you want to do festivals?
I'll be honest, it's too much of a big thing for me at the beginning. So I had the opportunity because of the book cafe always, of course. So because of the book cafe, I got introduced to Sanjoy Hazarika, and that was because of Mona. So the book cafe has given me opportunity to do all these things. So I would like to also state, like for a fact, that our small book cafe, we've been able to have close to around 70 events in the past 7 years. So, and it's been mostly to local writers. And I have to totally agree with what Preeti said. In big JLF, let's say, for example, right? Our local writers, I don't know when they'll be featured there. I would say it would take a few more years, or maybe 10 times that. But here, even though we do get funding, Preeti said, like, if they're funded by the government, so the government tries to push their own agendas. But here, that's not the case. I made a joke about our minister as well, right? So we're that close in those terms, and it's not really a problem as such. And I actually had an advice from a friend who said, Marwata, if you're doing these kinds of Lit Fest, people are going to recognize you, people are going to know what you do, and you'll probably get offers to be funded. But be very careful, because the big funded literary fest, they don't have their own free will anymore. So it's all about the agenda of the people funding it. So that way, I don't know. Obviously, I wish I could be the director of JLF, right? That way. But if it has to do with giving up my principles, then no again. So the main purpose of trying to have a Lit Fest here is to give platform to the local writers. And I think we're doing that. But it can't be just the local writers. They have to be known outside the state. And for that, that's where you guys come in. And I really thank you guys for being here. And again, this has to start somewhere. And it started with an idea of a small bookshop. And then I'll tell you a brief history of our bookshop. So back in 2006, me and my sister, of course, she's there. And without, yeah. Give a big hand to my sister, Sangi. Yes. Yes. Please, mommy. Take a bow, please. Yes. So, in terms of literature, she's my elder sister. But in terms of business, of course, I am the, her elder brother. And yes, chronological age, I am the elder brother. So, I would just like to give credit where credit is due again. So, I think it's all to my family, my parents, that the love of literature has been inculcated in us. Back in 2006, we tried to open a bookshop. We weren't able to because it was on the first floor. The concept of a cafe and all these things, it wasn't around yet. So somehow we opened in 2019, we got this place that we are in now. And then it wasn't planned as such. I never thought it would grow into something that could lead to a literature festival like this. So I still think I'm still able to stick to my principles. And I thank Mona, I thank Sanjoy, I thank Preeti, I thank Arundhati, Jerry, Damodarji, Guru. I thank you all here. And I can't mention all your names, but yeah, the vote of thanks is coming up and I'll leave it to that. And yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Thank you so much.
I have a real love of the small festival, and so I wonder whether Maja House and Bhai, both of you would talk about how you've managed to keep the festival small, located, real, and then Guru, if you'd like to speak before that. I'm sorry I interrupted. I didn't.
The long time ago, 98, Pankaj and we started a small actually it's more of a poetry festival in which, like Arundhati said, just wanted about 10, 12 poets to come read to each other, and we called it conversation in verse, we called it converse. So that was the idea, sit around a fire probably, drink some wine and read to each other. That's why I said the quality mattered, because you were reading to some people you admired, right? So, and Pankaj and I started in 98, and I've seen the other side of organizing. It's a hell of a task, getting people first agreeing, some are cancelling, getting, hotels arranged for them, sometimes a little thankless, but just the passion took us, and I feel my benefit has been I got to meet wonderful people all around. Mona was one of the first few people who attended also there. So that has been, because I truly believe that in the end, we are not separate.
A little about keeping Maja House real and connected.
So Maja House is actually our home in Amritsar, and this is where my in-laws used to stay, and after they passed and the house came to us and we don't live there, we decided to open it up to the public so that we would have people come in. And because of my own background in publishing and my own love for books and reading and so on, it was pretty obvious that it would be something to do with writers. And again, because Punjab is not really known for its reading, people don't seem to read. When I got married and went to Amritsar, there was just one bookshop in the walled city, and it was called the Book Lovers Retreat. There is still only one bookshop in Amritsar, the same one, and it's actually become smaller. So whatever size it had, it's half of that now. And the next place is again another shop selling chicken tikka. So, and I remember walking down Amritsar's main road, which is called Lawrence Road, and seeing the number of these chicken tikka and whatever these shops with tandoori chicken. And wondering to myself, what is wrong with people? Because there are these chickens hanging from everywhere, tandoori. And no self-respecting chicken is ever going to walk down that road. But there's not a book to be found anywhere. Anyway, that was then. And then so many years later, I get this house. So then I decide, and I also, because I knew that I would spend much more time in Amritsar, I wanted to actually grow a community for myself. So it was very selfish. It was a selfish desire to have people around me who would actually be reading and talking about books, and that I would be able to invite writers there. And that's how we started in 2017 with Maja House. It's called Maja House because that is the region of Punjab called Maja. And Punjab had 3 regions. This is the heartland of Punjab. Earlier had Lahore as well as Gurdaspur and Amritsar. Now Lahore no longer is with us, but as everybody must have told you, culture is the same and so on and so forth. So that's how we started. How I keep it going, because I have no money, is basically goodwill, people like you who will come. And the fact that we have now about 100 people who are members of Maja House. So they pay a small amount, and each month we do some programming, and they come. So whether it's 50 or 60 or 40 or whatever, but people come. We have chai and samosa, and you get to listen to ideas that are coming to you from, everywhere. And then during COVID, that was a really wonderful time for us because we could actually reach out to the whole world at that time, and Punjabis across the diaspora were then joining in. Because the other thing that I've tried to do is I don't always have local writers, but there's always a connect with Punjab or with Amritsar or something where you have the larger world or you have the nation, but you also have where it sort of touches upon ourselves. Trying to keep that in mind always means that Punjabis everywhere are interested to some level to tune into this. And those 2 years of COVID, when we were just doing Zoom sessions online, we were always, and we never ever paid for it, so we could only take in 100 people. And the 100 would always be full. And I think just that the name got known all over the place, mainly because of that.
Besides chai and samosas, once when I came, there was a lot of cranberries.
That again was a funder. A good guy.
But
A
it
good
was
guy.
great because the funder was a cranberry company. There was a huge big bowl of cranberries, and you kept going past and taking great quantities of it and chomping.
No, so Jerry, I wanted to ask you, because I know that you've played a role in helping shape the Litfest in Ooty. And, as a writer yourself, what has it meant for you to play this role? Because I know initially it can be exciting. There's the chance to shape the kind of event you would like to attend. But there are also, then one realizes, the challenges, the curatorial challenges. Tell us about those.
The thing about my Ooty moment was that I had two lovely grandmothers there. Okay, one was a Kurgi grandmother and one was a Tamilian grandmother. So they were really like a pair of go-getters. They were in their late 80s, but man, year after year the festival kept coming out. Then the two of them stepped down and some younger people took over, and suddenly there was a lack of energy. I'm telling you, those old ladies were just outrageous. And it was wonderful because, I read a lot. I read almost obsessively. Someone asked me, do you read every day recently? And I thought, are you mad? Like 30 and reading are like everyday things, right? You don't actually ask about these. No one asks about these things. So for me, I love the idea of sharing the excitement that I have. And one of the loveliest things that happened at the Ooty Literary Festival was when we had Geeta Ramaswamy come, the author of Land, Guns, Caste Women. If you have not read this book, read this book. Fabulous book. And she was on stage talking about how difficult it was to publish books in Telugu. And she had this wonderful collection, she said, of tribal songs, and she wanted to put it out. And I said, how much will it take? Okay. I was in conversation with her. So she said 2 lakhs. I turned to the audience and I said, we have to do this now. Okay. We have to raise the money for her. I got 1,70,000. And people at that point actually just sent her the money on that phone pay. 1,70,000 to do another book of tribal poetry. That's what festivals are supposed to do, I thought. I was so delighted, yeah. So it was another moment of just actually the fact that we are sitting here, Sikkim, Goa, Mizoram, Bombay, or Goa if you want, and Bombay and Goa, Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore, New York, God knows what, and you, and Amritsar, Bombay, Delhi, Bhopal, God knows what, all of us together, talking to you, seeing your faces, knowing what you're feeling, thinking with you. This is what we do it for. Hi.
Well, writers community, I think, love to meet one another. By the way, in Goa, we have a yearly event of Konkani writers. Konkani literature. We call it All India Konkani Literature Conference. Akhil Bharatiya Konkani Sahitya Parishad. So we have this every year, and we gather in thousands, readers and writers. We enjoyed the days. But then I always felt that we have to step out of our own region and get introduced to others and get others to be known to us. So that is one reason we felt, and it was Maria Aurora Kuto, you know her. So Mrs. Kuto took the lead, and she approached the International Center Goa when Nandini Sahai was there, and she said, "You approach Bhai, and Bhai will tell you other things." So she came to me, asked for help. I was of course, I was very happy to see that happening. I could see that it is happening. So she took the lead, and we went ahead, and even the governor's house, the Raj Bhavan, extended their helping hand. The governor was, of course, as usual, okay, ठीक है, दे देंगे कुछ, बस that's all. But we took off very well, I should say. Of course, with the blessings of Anantamurti. You know, Goa is special, in my opinion, not because I am a Goan, but Goa loves literature. But besides that, Goa loves more music. Goa loves dancing. So all this put together, and also food. So everything. So all put together, he is passing one step ahead. But all put together, our festival became a success. We attracted people who love music. We had music, but we're not interfering with literary sessions. We had late in the evenings after 7, but drew a lot of crowd. Again, good food was, Goan food was, authentic Goan food was served. So that was another attraction. And then, of course, books. We didn't sell, probably we don't sell much of books, but not very little also. Not like JLF where they sell, I say, 44,000 books in 5 days. Nothing of that sort. But our people, as good readers, they seek good books and they go for the books. So, in my opinion, we achieved, or rather we continue to achieve our goal of bringing people together, and bringing together creates a new bond among the writers from across the borders. Otherwise, people from Konkani writers meet together, Marathi writers meet at Marathi Sammelans. Everywhere there are literary Sammelans happening. But here, people from across the borders, across the languages, they come together and discuss literature, which brings a new view of looking at literature. Guru,
I'm saying let's...
No, last question. Guru, tell us why Converse stopped.
It hasn't stopped. We have it whenever we get money. So we're just at a pause right now.
Okay.
I actually just want to add one thing. I was trying to think of the connection between one's role as a curator and as a writer, and I realized the challenge for both, as a writer, as a reader, as a curator, I think for all of us, the shared challenge when we wear all these hats, is that what we're really looking for is how to become a better listener. And the challenges of that militate against listening are tremendous. Look at all of us with our cell phones right now, sitting right here, how difficult it is to actually just be present. It's something all of us face. So whichever the hat we are donning, whether it is writer, whether it is curator, whether it is reader, how do we truly foster a culture of listening? Listening deeply, listening attentively, so that everyone doesn't have to shout. The best book should not be the one written by the person who shouts. The best book ought to be the book written by someone who hasn't forgotten how to murmur. The ethos of murmuring, which is what I think the poetry circles many parts of the world have tried to return to, is the culture of the murmur, where you know what it's like to drop your voice and still be heard. That to me is an ethos worth cultivating, restoring, and celebrating.
It is now time for Maruata to murmur his thanks to us.
Okay. All right. I would like to murmur by saying, I don't know. I don't think there's any questions. So I would just like to add and that me with the least experience have gained the most from this session. Thank you so much. But just by listening. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being in this panel. Thank you for being with me here. Thank you so much.
All poetry begins in silence.